Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first DP Discover of 2025. My name is Kai Evans, and I'm the Director of Key Accounts here at Dominion Payroll, and I will be your host today. I am so thrilled to have you join us for our webinar, New Year, New Goals, Unlocking Your Team's Potential in 2025. Before we begin, I wanted to give you a quick reminder that today's session will be recorded, and you'll receive a copy of the recording following the presentation. If you have questions at any point, please feel free to drop them in our questions chat to the right, and we'll be happy to address them as they come. I am so excited to introduce a friend and a professional, and Marty Ritter. Marty has spent 20 years in talent development, recruiting, and human resources for Richmond advertising agencies, the Martin Agency, and Arts and Letters Creative Company. She's currently pursuing her coaching certification with the International Coach Federation, having completed co-active coaching training at the Center for Executive Coaching, where she also received their certification. She's working on launching her own coaching and talent consulting business in 2025. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marty.
Hi. Am I off mute?
You are.
Okay, good. Thanks for the intro, Kai, and thank you to all of you for being here. It's disconcerting to not be able to see you, so please feel free to. I don't think you can come off mute, so please, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I love for these things to be more conversational. So you can just post something in the chat, and I think Kai can read them out and I can answer them. But I'm really excited to be here. I centered this presentation in the new year around the concept of a North Star, the celestial concept, because I think in my career, if there's one thing I learned in my career as an HR person, it's that the role is so beholden to things that are beyond your control. And you can very quickly get to the end of the year and think, I think I did a lot of stuff, but did I really actually accomplish anything? And I found that having a North Star, whether it was like a vibe or a word that my team was going for, or a set of goals, something really helped me feel grounded and more intentional and able to make more impact and not just get carried away by the crazy that is being an HR person. So thank you so much for joining today, even though it's day 2 of the Snowmageddon. And maybe some of you are like me and have your feral children still out of school. And so I'm impressed that you're even here. And you might be wondering who I am, who is this crazy person. This is my aura reading from my previous company's last event that we had. If you're planning an event in 2025, reach out to me and I'll tell you about this. It was super cool and a huge hit. I found out that I'm a violet aura, so I've tried to channel that in this presentation. Apparently, this means I have a high level of spiritual awareness and a connection to higher realms of consciousness, and that I am often focused on transformation and enlightenment. So when I read that, I was like, yes, that means I'm going in the right direction by wanting to be a coach. I have spent 20 years in HR. And it was in the wonderful world of advertising, which I hope to never not be a part of. I love creative people, but it does make it maybe crazier than other environments. I don't know. It's debatable. But I am in the middle of a shift. So stepping outside of being internal in-house as an HR leader and taking on some kind of fractional consulting talent clients and really wanting to lean more into coaching. So if anybody is in need of coaching, let me know. I have a couple certifications, but I'm working towards that, getting that minted ICF designation. I am a mom of 3 kids. I'm telling you that and 2 dogs. And I'm telling you that because if kids come in here crying after sledding or dogs are barking, I just wanted to apologize in advance. And my daughter just got a beta fish named Patrick, and she wanted me to mention that as well. And I was and am still in spirit a proud Dominion payroll client. I love this webinar series because I think it wasn't until later in my HR career that I realized I really needed a community of other HR people that were going through what I was going through. And so I love this kind of thing. Um, got it. If you can see that pop up, sorry. My energy saver is on. Um, okay, so I wanted to give a nod to how we maybe all left things in 2024. If you're like me, um, you're just wanting to kind of get to the end of the year and go on break. And if I had a dollar for every time I saw a meme about, let's circle back on this in the new year, or this sounds like a 2025 problem, I would be a millionaire. So that's probably how we left things. And now we're coming back. And maybe last week or this weekend, you were thinking, like I always was, I forgot how to do my job. And what am I even doing? And now we have 2 snow days. So, it's a crazy time. And I thought we would take, the next 15 minutes or so and just try to reset. And I just want to give you guys some ideas for how to be a bit more intentional about making 2025 great. Some things that have worked for me, take them or leave them. Hopefully it's, a little bit inspiring. Okay. So the first thing is, and I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, HR is a really hard job. And I think it's very easy to end up in this default mode of just reacting. Whoever is complaining the loudest, whichever fire feels the most urgent, we used to call it chaos tornado or crisis ping pong when I worked in advertising. And it can become a vicious cycle to just be reacting and reacting and reacting. And, you know, if in a, as an HR person, it's frustrating. Leading a team, it's frustrating. I think sometimes entire organizations can be in this reactionary mode. This is geared more towards you in HR and your team, but I think it can apply to entire organizations. So, what happens when you're in this reactionary mode and you don't really have a North Star is that people don't understand maybe what the priorities are. And there's a misalignment there. Motivation or engagement can go down. People don't know what's guiding their decisions. So maybe they're making poor decisions. Resources aren't allocated to the right things. Your team isn't on the same page. Work can slow down or stagnate altogether. You can get to the end of the year, like I said, and feel like you didn't get the thing done that you wanted to do. And it gets really hard for people to feel like they're making an impact, for you to feel like you're making an impact for your team. And so, in a worst case scenario, I think sometimes people leave because of this stuff. And so, like I've said, firmly believe you need some kind of North Star. In advertising, when you talk about goals or priorities or strategies, we're our own worst client in an agency. So I think sometimes people would glaze over if I would say, let's make a list of priorities or goals. So I always called it a North Star, and that helped me. But something that helps you and your team kind of move from being haphazard and reactionary and chaotic to just a bit more grounded, intentional, and proactive. So, I think when you do have a North Star, the things that didn't, wouldn't go well without it start to go really well. And it's kind of amazing the impact it can have on a team with, I'm not going to belabor all of these things, but I think people just can understand where the train is headed and what they're supposed to do and what their role in it is. And it makes it feel like you can have more of an impact. Your impact is more palpable and you get the stuff done, and people are just happier. And you are happier. So, whenever I start to work on anything talent related, HR related, I always go back to this talk that I went to at South by Southwest with Daniel Pink. He's an author. He wrote this book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. It's a really quick read. And it's a little bit obvious, but it has really helped me throughout my career in HR. And he names 3 things that motivate people, not just talent in a job, but like your kids too, or your partner. Um, and they are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Um, Everybody wants to have a little bit of ownership and control over how they work. That's autonomy. I think in the post-COVID world, just having more flexibility and remoteness definitely helps with autonomy, but there's other things that you can do to set your team up to have more autonomy. Mastery is really just about people feeling like they're improving and developing and that they have the deep expertise in what it is that they do. And then purpose, which I think is probably the most important thing, and it's kind of a through line in any like leadership business book, is like being able to communicate the why your organization needs to do this, but you as a leader need to be able to do this for your team and for yourself. What's your personal why? Like, why am I here? What is the meaning behind what I'm doing? And am I able to contribute to it? So, those are three things that motivate people. And I've found it really helpful to ground things in this. And that's what I've done with our North Star. So, I'm going to give you three ideas for North Stars that kind of ladder up to these three things. I like this graphic because I think it simplifies it a little bit. If you feel in control and you have a little autonomy, you love the job. In a job you hate, you feel like you're being controlled or micromanaged, or you don't have any autonomy. With mastery, you either feel like you're using your full potential and you're growing at least a little bit, or you don't, and maybe you leave. You hate the job. Um, for purpose, like you either feel like your work matters and you're making an impact, or you don't. So it's pretty simple. And again, I am bringing to you three potential North Stars, as I like to call them, that are grounded in these three ways of motivating talent. By no means am I suggesting that you need to do all of these three things in 2025. Maybe you're an overachiever. Maybe you can do them all, or maybe you've already done some of these, and you want to circle back to them again. But I think if you pick one, these are actually things that I did for my company for an entire year, tried to focus on for the whole company. So it can take up one of these can take up the whole year. All right, so autonomy. Again, that's having a little bit of control over how we work. So if you want to give people autonomy and you want to be able to, as a leader, let go and let them go do it the way they want to do it, you have to have really, really clear expectations. So we're going to talk about setting the stage with really, really clear expectations. For mastery, people want to feel, again, like they're continually developing and improving. And so I'm going to talk about assessing your talent, doing a talent assessment. And then from there, giving acknowledgement where it's needed, or feedback and having tough conversations where that's needed, and then coaching accordingly through the year. And then purpose, which is my favorite, just creating some goals for your team and allowing them to create goals for themselves that do ladder up to a larger, why that your organization has. All right, so we'll start with autonomy. Again, not having clear expectations is the enemy of autonomy and really stands in the way. When people have come to me over the years with a performance issue, um, somebody on my team is not performing and they, we need to put them on a performance plan or we need to fire them. This is the first question I ask is like, have you been really clear about what your expectations are and what their responsibilities are? And often people think that they have, but they haven't. And one thing I always say is that leadership is communication, and sometimes it's just not clear. And so this North Star is about kind of, revisiting job descriptions, revisiting to see if everybody's clear on who is doing what and when. Do you have an onboarding document where you explain the role and how the process works and what everyone's doing? Is it clear? Can you invite your team in to look at their job descriptions and revisit them and update them? Or do you need to start from scratch? This is a place where you can use AI actually, or you can ask the people doing the jobs to do it. You don't, as HR people, we don't have to write every single job description, but it was one of my favorite things to do because I felt like it really helps people when it comes to understanding why they're there and what they're supposed to be doing, and then pointing to it when things come up like performance issues. Um, and then I've also mentioned here enhancing job descriptions. One of my favorite things that people at Arts and Letters did when it came to setting expectations was having a job description, but also writing a presentation, doing a little training for their teams around how to be like a badass at the job. Not just here's what you need to do, but these are the skills you want to be developing. These are the approaches that you can have that make you like just a cut above and make you the best in the industry, which I think is really cool. So those kinds of things. Hopefully that's clear. And please, I hope someone will ask a question or have a comment because I'm awkward. Kai, you can please comment. Please pipe in at some point.
You're doing great. You're doing great, Marty. You're doing great.
I'm like, is everybody still there? All right, mastery. So people, want to feel like they're growing and developing. And, this, I put an asterisk here. You don't have to do all the work here. You obviously want people to have skin in the game and be thinking about and working on their own career, but you are there to help them grow, and to help your organization, help the leaders in your organization understand the importance of that and their role there. So a talent assessment is a really great idea. And I think sometimes people don't do this because they overthink it. There's the 9-box matrix where you map people against performance and potential, or there maybe you already have a performance management system and you're mapping people against, values of the company or certain capabilities that you want them to have. The easiest one I've done is just to look at each person and we're trying to figure out, are they in the right, seat on the bus, and just kind of checking off whether they know their job, can work with people and collaborate, work with others, and are persuasive, can sell ideas. And then, so the goal is just to figure out who who are the rock stars that you can acknowledge and help them grow even more, and who are the folks that might be struggling for whatever reason, might need some clearer expectations, might need some coaching, some feedback. And I think if there's one thing that you do this year, as an HR director or an HR manager, encouraging doing this yourself, but also encouraging people in your company to have the conversation. I think the biggest thing I've seen in the 20 years in HR is that people do not have the performance conversation. They think they're giving feedback, but they're not, because human nature has us avoiding this at all costs. It's conflict, it's uncomfortable, we don't know how to do it. And I think that's one of the great things that HR can provide is support for, managers to have those tough conversations and to not keep putting them off until they're at your desk saying, I need to fire this person, but I haven't had any conversations with them. So you got to start by doing that with your own team. But I think that's a huge, huge piece, that can help teams have a North Star for the year, is just focus on this, focus on giving people the feedback and having the real conversations. And then you can also create development plans. Again, you don't have to do development plans for people. People can, as long as you're giving them the feedback, they can do their own development plan. Maybe you can weigh in, but it gives you something to coach them against throughout the year. So that's the second. And then the third, last but not least, around purpose, is just to create goals that align with your company's purpose. And, you're going to start by looking at what that is. I actually looked at Dominion Payroll. I'll show you in the next slide. I feel like you're very purposeful at Dominion Payroll. It's very clear looking even at your website, like why we're all here and what we're supposed to be doing. So it's probably an easy place to do that in. But if you're like me, you've worked in places where you're like, what are we doing here? And so it's a little bit harder. So, just picking one or two things or three things to focus on that everybody can rally around, that feel like meaningful whys that you can keep coming back to as you get distracted by all the crazy problems in HR. Keep coming back to them. and ticking away at them during the year. I think it's also important to kind of encourage people in your coaching with individuals to filter their own goals through this lens. Maybe it's not the be all end all for them, but if they can see how they personally can take their skills and contribute to these company wide or team wide goals, it can be really empowering. Again, purpose kind of can feel really daunting. When you think purpose, you think of like Patagonia and Tom's or like companies that are saving the world. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, some companies you're just making widgets and that's great too. And you can find purpose in that too. So look at, your company's values. These are the Dominion payroll values, which I thought were awesome. Look at the values. Sorry, dogs are barking if you can hear that. The mission, the history of the company. And one thing I think in HR we always miss out on is like, how is the company selling to clients? Look at the new business presentations, and try to find a why that you and your team can ladder up to, and then some goals that might align with that. I think it's really important here just to note the co-constructing of this, because then you get buy-in with your team and shared accountability. Maybe you're a team of one, so that's a lot easier. But if you do have a team, make sure that they are a part of this too, so they can take it and run with it. And this is, I'm not going to belabor this. This notion of purpose really permeates pretty much any leadership or business book that you read. These are three that I read last year, that I would definitely recommend. Essentialism is it was a harder pill to swallow, because it's basically like you got to pick one thing, one purpose, and just say no to everything else. And that's kind of hard in our roles as HR people, but I thought it was really helpful in coaching like CEOs, just to help them understand how important knowing that what that one essential thing is. Obviously, Simon Sinek, figuring out the why, can be really transformative for entire organizations, but also for you. And then Amy Jen Sue's book on being the leader you want to be. The first principle is around purpose, because it's kind of the foundational thing that guides how you make your decisions and how you lead every day. So finding your own purpose, but having that be, in the context of your company and having it align is huge. So just to review, I think all of these things are about communication at the end of the day. Like I said, leadership is communication. So setting clear expectations, or assessing and coaching your talent, or creating goals that align with the company's purpose, are all North Stars that I have tried before and been successful with, and might really help you, set yourself up to have a great year and your team. And then a parting thought, just as I've shifted from being internal in HR to external, um, I've really seen things from another angle and seen how everybody is so different, but everybody's trying to do the best that they can with the context that they have. And I think, trying trying to be as clear as you can and communicate your expectations, giving feedback and setting goals is really just like foundational to leadership. So that's what all these things are about. And I here's my email. I think they're going to follow up after this with my contact information, LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Again, I feel like having community in HR is so important. So don't be shy. Happy to help. Or if you're looking for coaching, I am looking for practice hours and would love to help you. So please reach out. And that's it. Hopefully I didn't go
Thank
too
you.
much over the 20 minutes.
No, you were good from a time perspective, Marty. We did get one question.
Oh, cool.
So yes, and
I'm going to stop sharing.
it was brought up as you were discussing the three North Stars section going over autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The
Mhm.
question is, do you have any strategies on how to carve out time from busy schedules to prioritize your North Star?
That is a really good question, and does speak to the fact that, as an HR person, I really did feel like I never had time, for this kind of a thing. And so I really had to be intentional about it. I would say my biggest strategies would be one, saying no or pushing back on things that don't really, when you think about it, really feel like you need to be doing them. You put the onus back on managers, put the onus on your team, delegate, find ways to say no. I mean, I think if you don't have your North Star, that's hard to do. So you just have to create the time. But there's that. Um, Another thing that really helped me, and I learned this from an HR manager that worked for me at Arts and Letters, who was so good at protecting her like personal time. She would time block. And I had always read about this in books and people told me to do it. And I would block my time and then it would go out the window because people were calling and asking me to help them. But I think, prioritizing what really absolutely has to get done and then blocking time to work on those things and then sticking to it is huge. Just carve out 2 hours, tell people you're not there, and you know do this. So those are two strategies. Hopefully that helps. Kai, do you have any?
No, I think that's right. What I'm interested in, if you could build on that, is just the importance of understanding and creating that North Star and how that is connected with the action and driving actions of the team. I think that my concern is that you create this exercise and it's a one hit wonder and you put it away in the file cabinet and then you go about your
Mm-hmm.
day to day. So if,
Mm-hmm.
if you could maybe speak a bit to this is your playbook, or this is your map and getting things done. Have you seen in your career that you have these exciting conversations as it relates to um, priorities or imperatives, and then it almost just gets put away and no
Well,
one
I've never
revisits it?
felt like before I was a leader myself, I never felt like the conversations about priorities were exciting, is one
Right.
thing, right? Um, and sometimes I felt like I wasn't a part of them. I was just told what they were. So I think a big piece of this is to, if you do have a team, is to work together on it and to involve your team so that they do get excited about it. And that's why I said that about co-creating it is you don't want it to be something that they're like, yeah, 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 Marty, whatever. Like, you want it to feel integral to what everybody thinks. So I usually just did it together with my team. What do we think is important? And it would take a few hours to kind of get down to it. Um, and to be honest, sometimes it was just like a word, like, or a North Star that's as simple as like we want to be the best workplace. Or one year it was we do all these really great things for our employees, but we aren't telling the story. So our North Star was communicating all the things that we do. So as we were going along and tasks would come up that were HR related, we would take a beat and make sure that we had a deck that articulated the leave policy, or a my team would be like, you know what, I'm going to make a quick deck that talks about our how great our maternity leave is, or I'm going to update our onboarding to make sure it makes it clear that we've won the best workplace award 5 times, or whatever it is. It was always about communication. So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be like a 5-prong plan. It can be just one thing that you're aiming towards.
No,
So
I
there was an entire year devoted to things like job descriptions and clear expectations for the entire company. We did that, you know. Um, and that's a little bit easier, I think, because it's more of a task.
exactly. I think goal development, certainly what you have doubled down on is it's a partnership between the direct report and the manager. I think that breeds inspiration and life into a process that maybe in the past or in some places is more transactional. And so
Yeah.
to move it towards a place of excitement and inspiration and aspiration, I
Yeah,
think
I
will
mean, we would
drive.
do things for our own team and then share them with our CEO. You know, here are our job descriptions and our model of like how you grow in HR at this company. What if we do this for the whole organization? And that gets people excited because they can see it. So it kind of starts with you, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Is that an example?
Marty, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing this rich and wonderful information, especially as we begin a new year. As I shared at the beginning of the call, the materials covered today and the recording will be shared with all of the participants that joined this morning. Thank you, Marty. As she shared, she is open to connect and very excited about future and continued development of a HR community here in the Richmond area and beyond. And so please reach out. We've captured her information in the link, and stay tuned for more webinars to come from Dominion Payroll in the future. Have a great day, everyone.